So moving ahead, section 2.1, data collection. So section 2.1.1 outline the channels for collecting the data. So there are various ways and forms you can collect your data. So data channels can be collected from the internal acquisition. It can be collected from the non-traditional data sources. It can be from the external and public data source as well. So there are multiple ways by which the data can be collected. So let's talk about the internal acquisition. So most common source of data collection is the internal acquisition. In the internal system, data can be collected from online sign-up forms. It can be collected from various tools such as Internet of Things, can be collected from device logs. It can be collected from the web analytics software. It can be collected from the digital records of customer information stored in the customer management system. So if you see most of the organizations, they might have centralized spaces called CMS or ERPs of the world, which can definitely be used for collecting the data. So they are the examples of internal sources for data acquisition. So they basically fall in the category of internal acquisition. Talking about the non-traditional data sources, definitely it is an alternative source of data collection. So most commonly for the banking and financial sector, you can think of having the non-traditional data sources. So the data consists of the likes of investment data, the likes of security or exchange data, filing data. These are the examples or the kind of non-traditional data sources. So organization definitely can think of using those non-traditional data sources as well. And the next important thing for the data collection can be the public data source. So another alternative source for data is the open data or open data repositories, which are available publicly on the internet. So when you are trying to assess those open public data or repository, we need to see, are we compliant to the overall standards for data collection. So these are the important channels by which you can get the data. It can be from the internal sources, it can be from the public, or it can be from the non-traditional data sources as well. So when you are trying to collect the data, we need to be ensuring, as we discussed earlier, all your data collected has to be compliant with the standards which are there followed by the organization. So moving ahead, so section 2.1.2, explaining the ways to source the public data. So as we talked and as we discussed, there are multiple ways by which you can source the public data, and obviously the data which we are sourcing, it can be from the financial transactions, it can be from the perspective of public record, it can be from the perspective of social media, which is easily available now. Can see and look at from the perspective of press releases. You can see and look at from the perspective of online news articles as well. So these are few of the examples by which we can collect the data, because these data are available easily in the public domain. There are other ways to source the sensory and imagery data as well. So these data can also be available as a part of public data as well. So if you do the web scraping in the public sourcing methods, that basically aims at collecting the data from various websites. So suppose if you're trying to predict the climate or weather of a city in coming days, and you need to collect the data, you can definitely use some of those uh, uh, website which have that information available. So you can use the technique of web scraping, and all the information pertaining to the weather of a city can be derived from that. So obviously there are various public data set and platforms which are available as an option from where one can download these data sets. So these data sets can definitely be accessed easily as part of the project if you are carrying out any data analytics project. So, there can be a easier way of sourcing these data as these are available, in the public domain. So moving ahead, we will talk about how we will be able to reach compliance with the contemporary laws which are available for protecting the data. So section 2.1.3 outline how to reach the compliance with the contemporary data laws. So the data which is extracted from the various sources can definitely pose multiple challenges in form of the data compliance. Most of the time, the data which is available publicly should not have any issue because those are sourced from the sites or which are basically either having the dummy data or the real-time data, but then which is provided after consent from the required authorities. So suppose if you're trying to access a data for weather condition from NASA or from ISRO, where they are trying to predict the weather condition, or they're trying to say the temperature would be X degrees Celsius or would be X degree Fahrenheit, it should be relatively easy because that data is easily available in public domain, and people and organization can use that data which is available. But then if the data which is basically used, and some of the data can be crucial, right? So if the data transparency is not maintained, how we are collecting the data. So suppose if we are carrying out a survey for understanding the behavior of adoption of any of the phenomena. So suppose if you are asking how people do the online shopping, and if you are collecting the data, you need to have the data transparency, with the respondent, and you need to get a consent from them that the data which is collected might be used for the purpose of these reasons. And once we have the transparency established between the person who is collecting the data and the respondent, then it should not be a problem. But then the element of transparency is important. We need to clearly inform to the respondent what would be the purpose of this data collection, how this study will be carried out, and we also need to ensure and guarantee to the respondent that the data will always be kept intact. So it will not be subject to any kind of variations, or it will not be shared to other for other purpose. So the data transparency is the most important element to ensure the data compliance is established. So as we see, the non-compliance definitely can lead to the legal actions and legal complications. And again, it also depends on the kind of country where you are staying. So suppose if you are staying in US or maybe in the European Union, you need to be adhered to the kind of laws which are pertaining to the data collection out there. And if you don't follow these laws, then the required authorities might impose heavier fines and then even can debar your licenses as well. So non-compliance is taken quite seriously and can definitely lead to the legal complications and issues as well. Obviously, it is important for data analytics team to work very closely with the legal team, legal experts and advisors, and get their inputs to avoid any kind of legal challenges in future. So the intention is how the team can work together cohesively with the legal experts and ensure that they don't cross the lines or threshold. The data infringement laws which are there for various countries needs to be looked upon very seriously. And hence your legal experts or advisor can definitely provide their inputs and definitely avoid any kind of legal challenges which might be faced by the data analytics team as they are not aware of some of those complications.